Good day and welcome to Retire Early Lifestyle. We inform our viewers about what's happening on the ground in some of these countries. And today we're going to talk about 5 countries that are not being promoted on the RAM list, or at least rarely promoted. There is selfless promotion and shameless promotion. The difference is, in selfless promotion, you aren't selling the country. In fact, you tell them all the warts up front. We're good at that, as you know. But also, you have to give the viewer a balanced view, and in that respect, it is still informing because you are not enticing people to move to a foreign country, lock, stock, and barrel. We tell people, lock up, but leave the stock and barrel at home. Okay, and then in shameless promotion, not only are you selling the country through enticements and omission, but you're actually putting people in danger by glorifying violent countries abroad. Who would do that and why? So we said all that to say, let us inform you today about these 5 countries that are not promoted or are very rarely promoted by the Rams. We strive to bring you a balanced view so you can then make a more enlightened decision about your future home base. Let's get started with the video. Number 5, Armenia. Armenia borders Republic of Georgia, Iran, Turkey, and Azerbaijan. In the winter of 2020, we traveled to Yerevan, Armenia, and spent 3 weeks sightseeing and adventuring and had a great time. It was very cold, but we did not let that stop us. We were prepared for the snow with winter attire. It even snowed a couple of times, but it never stuck to the ground. There were very few English speakers in Armenia, but the people were very kind and would do their best to help the foreigners get through the language barrier. It's quite overwhelming when you first arrive, as the language is so different and there are no English signs anywhere. All you see everywhere is squiggly lines. At least in Spanish-speaking countries, you get to see letters and numbers, but in Eurasia, it's totally foreign. At first thought, most people think, well, so what? You can't speak the language. Well, if you're going to live in a place permanently and you cannot speak or read the local language, and very few people speak your language, you'll find out very quickly that it can be a challenge and it can be costly. However, we did manage without a bilingual using phone apps, translators, and sign language. So to sum up Armenia in a nutshell, these are the things you notice right away and on a 3-week trip. The people are pleasant folks. They smoke cigarettes a lot here, even in the restaurants.
Well, the thought occurs to me that you look at a lot of these places, and they're modern looking and they modern buildings, but they still don't have no smoking in restaurants, and you still have to contend with the odor of tobacco smoke and when you're eating and things like that. But that's that's just part of I think going to.
They do not wear bright colored clothing in Armenia and usually opt for darker colors. Most of the people wear boots. You'll see some of them all the way up to the knee. Some of the women wear military-looking boots.
I wouldn't call Armenia exotic. It's more European than anything, really. I mean, it's in the feel. I know that it's its own culture. I don't mean to minimize that, but just saying, as a walking around and the feel you get.
Oh, I see where we're at. Okay. I didn't recognize this before.
That's a real radio going on there. Oh, let's see here. Interesting. Hey, you see something new every day.
girls. The food was good. We mostly ate in, though. In Armenia, we ate a lot of yogurt, cheeses, and creamy soups, chicken, dumplings, and things like that. We did eat out a few times, and our non-adventurous palate told us to stick with dishes we could pronounce, so this is what we had. Yerevan felt really spread out, with very clean streets, orderly traffic, and lots of big wide sidewalks. Yerevan has a very nice open feel, and the architecture was amazing. It's very unique construction on this side of Europe. There were many big, very old churches and cathedrals and big parks with meandering sidewalks with little wooden bridges going over little streams and creeks. What we didn't like was all the communist-style looking apartment buildings all over the place in certain areas. Some looked abandoned, but others we could clearly see were occupied. These Soviet-era buildings are all over and are dreary and drab, and well, too militant for our tastes. The new modern apartments were okay though. The city seemed quite built up with big nice clean stores, malls, parks, and restaurants. But we adventured outside of the city and it's not so built up. In fact, it had more of the Soviet-era looking buildings and was a bit more run down, and this was just about 6 or 7 blocks outside of the city.
So we're out of the touristy commercial city center area. That's what the metro looks like so we don't get lost. Oh yeah, that's one of the things we do when we're in a new place, new country, new city. We take the metro and get off on all the stops, and if we like what we see, we keep walking around, and if we don't, we get back on the metro, go to the next stop. Let's go over to the main road and see what's over here. Somebody said the journey is the reward, so it's not so much the destination, it's just the surprise of getting there and wandering around.
Would we live in Armenia? There are other issues that would best not be put in print. The Armenians are very kind and good people, and we would not hesitate to consider them as our neighbors. The country merits further consideration, however. Number 4, El Salvador. We'd like to travel to El Salvador one day and check it out. The president has done a great job of cleaning up the country, and it looks like the people are living a better life now than they ever have before. Bitcoin is the standard exchange in El Salvador now, and it is working out well for the country. We think the look and feel of El Salvador would be a mixture of both Colombia and Ecuador. It is a Latin country, and as such, you would expect the challenges of living in Latin America except for the enlightened thinking of its current administration. Would we live in El Salvador? We would probably only visit El Salvador rather than make it our permanent home, and here's why.
El Salvador is a volcano zone. It's a volcano zone, and all it would take is some kind of, and you can't get away from the volcanoes. Anywhere you want to live in El Salvador, that you would want to live, because you could go out to the boonies over there by the frontier, by the border area, way out nowhere, and people don't do that. Most people aren't going to do that. They're going to go where you're going to go, in the center, the capital, the this, the that, the coast, and that's where the volcanoes are. and people take this kind of thing a little too lightly. But this day and age, perhaps in times past, you could say, well, that's something that probably doesn't happen but every 500 years or something. But the volcanoes in Ecuador are constantly erupting all the time. We've made videos while a volcano was erupting, and it looks like snow's falling and it's ash. And no big deal, right? But those volcanoes were like hundreds of miles away. I would hate to be like 5 miles from a volcano, which is what you would be in El Salvador. So no, please don't make it sound like some paradise where everything is perfect. And, I'm just as hopeful as the next guy. But I'm hopeful for America to be turned around.
Poland. We liked Poland. Our 2 sons especially liked Poland. Oops, are we promoting Poland? Well, if there is something good to say, shouldn't we say it? To be fair, the first couple of weeks we were staying in the tourist section of Warsaw, Poland, and that may skew our review a bit. Warsaw is not promoted by the Retire Abroad media, but it's not off the beaten path either. But many towns in Poland are, and so we decided to include it in our list. The tourist sector had a lot going on, but we quickly left from there to get a better deal on a rental, and we moved to the outskirts of Warsaw. But it was just as lovely, but with less tourist restaurants, souvenir shops, and museums. The people were so nice and helpful. They went out of their way to stop what they were doing to walk out onto the sidewalk to help us with directions. So yes, they were very personable people. Poland has big, wide open field, very clean streets, orderly traffic with bicycle lanes, and wonderful good walking sidewalks. We did a lot of walking in Poland, and when you walk a lot, you notice how the sidewalks are. Warsaw has many big, beautiful parks, and some even had hiking trails and museums. We did both the hiking trail park and the museum park, and spent the whole day doing each. No kidding. Take your time and enjoy it. Warsaw has very good transportation services and very built up, and for a big city, it's very safe. Crime is not an issue during the day, even in big city Warsaw. Most people, especially the younger ones, speak English in the city, but we were told that when you go outside of Warsaw, less English is spoken. Would we live in Poland? Overall, we got a good feel for the place and would definitely go back again and check out a coastal town next time. We're not the big city types. We prefer the small town, laid-back, slower lifestyles. But for a vacation, going to touristy Warsaw is a great option because there is a lot to do and see. But for a more permanent living, we'd opt for more rural and even countryside lifestyle. And it's also less expensive once you get outside of the big city of Warsaw. Bulgaria. Bulgaria is not on the Ram circuit, but it still seems to get a lot of traffic to the big city of Sofia, which is the capital. We traveled to Sofia first with the intention to go to the coast, but what happened instead is they locked the city down during the pandemic, and we got stuck in Sofia, Bulgaria for 3 months. They even shut down the international airport and wouldn't let people leave. So we made the most of it and made plenty of videos about it. Sofia is like any other big city, nothing special that stood out to us except for the comprehensive totality of their public transportation system. They love Italians, Italian food, and had plenty of Italian restaurants. We looked for a traditional Bulgarian food restaurant and only found one, and it was so pricey we never ate there. We went back to our apartment and made Italian food for dinner. Sofia, Bulgaria has been discovered, and so the rentals were quite touristy. So what we did was we traveled to the outskirts of Sofia, and glad we did because we liked it much better, and we paid about $400 a month for our apartment. Being on the outskirts was more picturesque with the snow-capped mountains in the background and walking distance to 2 big grocery stores and a botanical gardens park. The people were nice, just like people are nice just about everywhere we've been in the world. Sofia on the outskirts was quite built up, and it had a big, wide open field, good sidewalks, clean streets, clean stores, and malls. The grocery stores were impressive, and the food was absolutely incredible with lots of fresh creams, butter, yogurts, kefirs, cheeses, and fermented healthy cheeses and other foods. We were very happy about that. The food was inexpensive for the freshness and value you received. Transportation was top-notch in Bulgaria. A monthly pass allows unlimited use of their complete citywide system. We just showed our card and hopped right on whenever we wanted and whatever transportation we wanted. If you're going to live there for months at a time, it is preferable way to go because you'll save money. Like Poland, they have the electric trolley, the underground sub, buses, metro, everything. Would we live in Bulgaria? Before we answer that, we would like to check out the coastal areas of Bulgaria first. Maybe a smaller town near the beach, walking distance would be best, and a population of about 10 to 15,000 people would be great. You know, something more off the beaten path. We wouldn't want to live permanently in Sofia. Sofia has been discovered and the prices reflect that. I think because we got locked down in Sofia and we couldn't leave, it left us with a less than attractive feel for the big city. But we would love to check out some of the lesser discovered beach areas of Bulgaria and even off the beaten path. Our number one pick is Russia. Russia has a lot of great things going for it. Just take yourself back to the 1950s and 1960s of America again, but with a more built-up feel, and you'll have Russia.
What was radicalizing, very shocking and very disturbing for me was the city of Moscow, where I'd never been, the biggest city in Europe, 13 million people. And it is so much nicer than any city in my country. I had no idea. My father spent a lot of time there in the 80s when he worked for the US government and barely had electricity. And now it is so much cleaner and safer and prettier aesthetically. It's architecture, it's food, it's service than any city in the United States.
Now, we've never been to Russia, but we would love to travel there one day. We got a bit of a taste of Russia when we were in nearby Tbilisi, Georgia. Georgia reminded us of Russia, you know, like what you see in the movies. They spoke Russian in Georgia, and there were many Russians who live in Georgia. Georgians are very nice people. It could be the Russians would be similar. It remains to be investigated. The food was tremendous in Georgia, by the way. The best way to describe Georgian food, which is similar to Russian, is it's comfort food, such as creamy, buttery dishes, meat dumplings, and cheesy, creamy potato dishes with hot, creamy soups. Ironically, they eat a lot of fats, but they appear to be slim people in general. That's because good fats made from fresh food without GMOs is actually good for you. Anyway, we loved eating out in the restaurants because the atmosphere is warm and comfortable inside, which was a nice respite from the cold winter outside. We ate out all the time in Georgia, at least once a day, and that's a lot for us. Yes, I know, we talked more about Republic of Georgia than Russia, and well, that's how close we were, only a border away, and we sensed a heavy Russian presence in culture in Georgia, especially the food culture. Would we live in Russia? Well, we've never been there, but if it is anything close to our love of Tbilisi, Georgia, then we would live in Russia. By the way, we would have added Republic of Georgia on our list, but it is now so touristy and expensive. It has tripled in price on the rentals. Although it is not on the RAM retirement circuit, it does get promoted heavily by financial companies and digital nomad and nomad capitalist type groups and vloggers. So there are the 5 countries that are not listed or rarely get talked about by the Retire Abroad media. Hope you enjoyed that. Until the next video, have a great day.